every blast beat is a crumbling skyscraper. All the tremolo riffs are like laser beams vaporizing everything in their path. That's the whole idea.
Welcome to the Dreams of Consciousness podcast. If you'd be so kind, would you mind introducing yourself?
I am Lord Kaiju, the founder, rhythm guitarist, and vocalist for Oxygen Destroyer.
Lord Kaiju, welcome back. The last time you were on the podcast was 2021, after the release of your previous album, which was called Sinister Monstrosities, spawned by the unfathomable ignorance of humankind.
Yeah.
Did I get it this time?
Yep, you got it. It rolls right off your tongue, right?
So we had a long chat about the concept behind Oxygen Destroyer and your music. Do you want to bring everyone up to speed about kaiju death metal?
Sure. The whole theme of this band is that we're a tribute to giant monster movies. That's why our music is so fast and relentless and chaotic. It's because it's symbolizing the destruction that these massive monsters bring. Like every blast beat is a crumbling skyscraper. all the tremolo riffs are like laser beams vaporizing everything in their path. That's the whole idea.
So 2021 was the last time we spoke on the podcast. We actually did run into each other a few months back at Terrorfest in Seattle. But between those 2 points, what have you been up to? What's been going on with Oxygen Destroyer?
Well, me and Chris, our drummer, moved to Portland, Oregon. I really like the scene out here, and it's a cool little city. I really like it a lot. We're still working with Paul and Joey, too. It doesn't mess anything up, even though we're 3 hours apart. We all still get together and jam from time to time and do a lot of practice in our spare time as well, so that when we all do get together, it goes smooth. And yeah, we just put out our third record as well. So we've been pretty busy, been touring a lot too.
Now, was the move to Portland purely because of the music scene, or were there other reasons?
Multiple reasons. I lived in Washington for like 20 years, and I guess I just needed a change of scenery. And I do like the Portland music scene a lot. A lot of cool nerdy stuff too. I like going to Hollywood theater. So it's pretty much my favorite movie theater ever. And there's lots of cool arcades out here and a lot of cool nerd stuff, basically.
And as far as Oxygen Destroyer goes, I mean, both Portland and Seattle are based in the Pacific Northwest. Does it change things for you as far as tours or getting offers to play shows or anything like that?
Not so much. I do think we play Portland more often these days now, but we still play Seattle from time to time. Though, since we're so busy trying to get on the road and play other cities, we don't play local as often as we used to, but I'm okay with that because I like to keep us from playing the same city too much. We usually try to play no city more than 3 times in 1 year. We want every show to feel like an event, keep people waiting, keep them excited.
Right. Now, musically, would you say that that Oxygen Destroyer is in the same place that you were 3 years ago?
Our third album, I would say, is much thrashier. Like, our music's always been thrash metal inspired, but the third one in particular is very, very much on the thrash side, especially stuff like Protector. Protector was a big influence on this new record. It's definitely our fastest record and our most technical one so far by a lot.
Sure. And we'll speak about the new album in some depth shortly. So I'm actually not that familiar with Protector. Or were they one of the German thrash bands?
Yeah, they're a Teutonic thrash metal band. Here's how I would describe them. You know the Sodom album, Tapping the Vein?
Sure, yeah.
Protector is Tapping the Vein, the band. Like, if every Sodom album was Tapping the Vein, it would be Protector. I highly recommend the album Shedding of Skin. That album in particular was a big influence on the new album. It's a gem.
Very cool. So, the last time we spoke on the podcast, you talked about your songwriting process, and I believe you said that all the riffs start with you, and then you and Chris, the drummer, will get together and arrange stuff. Is the process more or less the same?
Pretty much, yeah. I still write everything, and then I work with Chris, and we figure out, drum parts and how it's all going to sound, and then after that, we show Paul and Joey what we've got, and then Joey writes his solos and learns the songs, and Paul learns the songs and decides what he wants to do on bass. So, yeah, the process is pretty much the same, and it's going pretty well.
And as far as the kaiju themes, this album is a little bit different from what you did on previous albums, but in the sense that this album is based on one specific era or one specific series of movies. But in the past, was each song basically based on a different movie?
Yeah, so on the first 2 albums, they were taking influence from multiple films. Like, the first album was very much influenced by numerous films throughout the Godzilla franchise. And then the second album paid tribute to a few Godzilla movies, but that's definitely when we started branching out a bit more. A few movies that inspired the second album were Gorgo and The Giant Claw and The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. But this third album is a concept album that pays tribute to the Heisei Gamera trilogy. I've actually wanted to do this record since I started the band almost 10 years ago. For anyone that doesn't know, the 90s Gamera trilogy are some of the most highly acclaimed films in the kaiju genre. They are totally outstanding. They're my favorite movies of all time. So I'm really glad that we finally made this album happen. I've been wanting to do it for a while, and it turned out exactly how I wanted it to.
So let's break down the Heisei Gamera trilogy. Heisei refers to a period in Japanese history, starting with Akihito becoming Emperor of Japan. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And so all the films that were released during that period are considered part of the Heisei era.
Yeah.
So tell me about Gamera. Tell everyone who may not be up to date on their kaiju lore who Gamera is and what he represents.
So Gamera is a totally separate kaiju franchise from the Godzilla series. It's its own thing. It started back in the 60s, and it started as a kind of a Godzilla knockoff. The old 60s and 70s Gamera films were a lot more lighthearted, a lot cheesier and aimed towards kids. I do enjoy them a lot, though. They're a lot of fun. But the 90s Gamera trilogy was a reboot, and it was a more serious and darker take on the character. And yeah, these three films are outstanding. Like, the special effects are really cool. The human characters are well written. The writing in general is really, really good. And the fight scenes are incredible. These three films just have a lot to offer. It really, many people would say that it surpassed all the Godzilla movies that came out during that time. Like, some people have even said that Gamera 3 is the best kaiju film since the original 1954 Godzilla. So, yeah, writing this record was a little stressful because I really wanted to get it right. I really wanted to, do these films justice. And luckily, I think we succeeded. In fact, I had a lot of people on our recent tour telling me that because of this new album, they went and they watched those films and they loved them. They said that they were incredible, and I'm really happy to see that happening.
Well, let's break down Gamera a little bit. He's a giant turtle who flies and throws fireballs. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's a giant flying turtle and he breathes fire. It's totally outlandish and it's fucking awesome.
And separate from the Godzilla series, but he's similar to Godzilla in the sense that depending on the movie or the era, he could either be an antagonist towards humans, or he could be a creature who protects Japan, right?
So that's one thing about Gamera that stands out. In the very first film, he was an antagonist, but they kind of weren't really sure what they were doing yet. But ever since the second Gamera film, which was Gamera versus Barugan, he's been a hero. Like, what really stands out about Gamera is that he is a full-on good guy. He is a savior of the earth and its inhabitants, and he's basically a symbol of hope, courage, and perseverance. That's what the Gamera character is all about. And he does more, like when he's saving the earth and he's saving people, he's doing more than just fight other monsters. You'll see him directly shielding people from blasts. You'll see him going out of his way to protect people from monsters or from getting stomped. He's a very inspirational monster.
And Godzilla can symbolize any number of things, depending on the movie and depending on basically the political climate at the time. Does Gamera represent anything in particular?
I would say, just say, as I said, like hope, courage, and perseverance. That's what I get out of the Gamera character. I think he's the closest that a kaiju can get to being just a full-on superhero.
Right. But it's not like he represents like the dangers of nuclear power or anything like that, right?
No, not so much.
So, the album that you just put out in August is called Guardian of the Universe, and it was released by Redefining Darkness Records.
Yes.
The last time I had you on the podcast, you mentioned you had already begun writing music for this album, and you were excited to get this Gamera theme, to write an album around this Gamera trilogy. How long did it take for you to complete the songs? When was this album finished?
Let me think. I think writing it took about a year and a half. I think it was around halfway through 2022 when I finished writing it. And during that period, we were already practicing some of the songs and playing some of them live. And by the time we went on tour with Fulci, that's when we were able to perform all of the songs. And so when that tour was over, that's when we went into the studio and got it recorded, went through that whole process. So yeah, the writing process was finished by halfway through 2022. And then it just came out, like a month ago. So yeah, after we were done recording it, that's when the mixing and the mastering got done and the artwork, and then waiting for it to get pressed and figure out release dates and all that stuff. So yeah, it took 3 years for the whole thing to come out, but the writing process was done in about a year and a half.
It sounds like you put songs together, or you and Chris put songs together pretty quickly.
Yeah, as soon as I finish an album, I just start immediately working on the next one. Like, I'm already halfway done writing the fourth album right now.
Cool. So you mentioned some of the influences you had, some of the musical influences you had for this album. Was the intention always to put out a faster album, to outdo what you had done previously?
Yeah, I wanted this album to be epic and grand, and because the three films it's based on, like, they are just absolutely outstanding, and they're massive and epic in scope, and I really wanted to capture that with this album. So, I wanted some of the rest to sound heroic. Most of the album is sung from first person, like from the perspective of the monsters themselves, and that's something I was really excited to do.
Yeah. So we didn't really get into this deeply the last time you were on the podcast, but Lord Kaiju, is this a persona? Is this you becoming a kaiju when you perform and sing these songs?
When I perform live, I like to see myself as a kaiju worshiper or a priest, like I'm spreading the good word of the kaiju and their power. Like when I'm on stage, that's what I feel like I'm doing. I'm preaching the good word. I'm warning everyone of their power and their destruction. And, I want everyone in the venue to feel like they're being crushed.
Yeah. I mean, when you guys played Terrorfest, you definitely crushed it.
Thank you. Thank you.
You guys were awesome. And speaking of Kaiju, your drummer's a beast.
He's a blessing to work with. I love Chris.
Where did you guys end up recording this album?
We recorded it with Charlie Korn, the drummer for Incantation and Ascended Dead. I can't remember the name of the studio at the top of my head right now, but it was at his studio, and he was great to work with. And we had Noah from Nunslaughter mix and master it.
So Ascended Dead have been on the podcast before. I believe Charlie's studio is called Toad House.
Yes, that's it. Right? Toad House, that's the one. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And I recently spoke to Coffin Rot, who also worked with Charlie recently. I mean, now that you're Portland based, I'm guessing Charlie's easy to get to, at least when he's not on tour with Morbid Angel or Incantation.
Yeah, I see him at shows from time to time too. He's awesome.
I mean, was his body of work part of the reason you wanted to work with him?
Yeah. I really like the bands that he plays in, and I've heard some of his work before, like some of his recording work, and he's also just a super chill dude. So, and also the fact that he's a drummer, I thought that would make the drums on this album sound especially good, Plus, the bands he plays in are really, really, really fast. So I thought having someone who plays fast would be the perfect person to work with for recording fast music.
Right, yeah. I mean, he definitely knows drums and he definitely knows death metal. What would you say his approach is as an engineer?
He was very easy to work with. He was really laid back, and we got it done. Like, he was very reliable. I remember there was a time when I noticed later on that there were parts in my vocals that I messed up and I wanted to fix, but he was on tour. But when his tour came to Portland, he made time for me. He made time to, run from the venue to the studio and fix up my vocal parts real quick before he had to go back to the venue and play his set. So he definitely gives it his all. He's super reliable. He's someone you can count on. It was great to work with him. I think we'll definitely work with him again on our next album.
Yeah. You said that you wanted to work with Charlie because you thought he'd bring a good drum sound to the album. Overall, how would you say that working with Charlie affected Oxygen Destroyer's sound? Like what makes this album different from your previous releases?
I feel like this new record is definitely tighter sounding, and I feel like everything can be heard extremely well. Like, we definitely wanted, the drums, vocals, guitars, and everything to be, pretty like evened out so you could hear literally everything that was going on. We wanted a good balance of that, and I think we got it. Like, we wanted it to sound like we didn't want it to like purposely sound old school. We wanted it to sound like a 2024 release, but and we wanted it to be polished, but not so much to the point that it wasn't raw, and I think we found that balance. It sounds tight, you can hear everything clearly, but it's still got that energy and that aggression that you gotta get in a thrash metal or death metal record.
Yeah, it's definitely aggressive, but I think the clarity really brings out your musicianship. Like, you can hear how good you guys are as musicians on this album, which is maybe a little bit hidden on the previous releases. Do you think that's a fair assessment, or?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. And as you mentioned, the album was mixed and mastered by Noah Buchanan from Nunslaughter.
Yeah.
Why Noah? How did Noah get involved, and what were you looking for him to bring to your sound?
Our record label highly recommended him. He's friends with Noah. In fact, when we played Cleveland earlier this year, or I guess that was a month ago, holy shit, that's where our label's based, and that's the venue we played. Their sound guy was Noah, so they they're in the same scene. And we like his work too. I really like his work on the Midnight records. His production on those albums are really, really good. So yeah, I mean, it was the label's recommendation, and Redefining Darkness has been really good to us. So we trusted them, and we liked his work that we'd heard. So yeah, I mean, I think it turned out great.
So at the time we're having this conversation, you recently got off tour, and like I mentioned, you guys played Northwest Terrorfest in May. Any plans for tours for the rest of the year, or maybe early 2025?
Yeah, we it's not announced yet, but we have one more tour happening this year in early December. And next month we're gonna do a couple dates with Ghoul. Ghoul has a tour coming up. We were asked if we could do the whole thing, but we can't. But at the very least, we're going to do the Pacific Northwest states. So we're going to play with them in Haggis, in Portland, and Seattle next month. And we're looking forward to that.
This isn't the same tour with Laceration, is it?
Laceration? No, I think it's just, as far as I know, it's just Ghoul and Haggis.
Okay. Because I spoke to someone else who's doing a tour with Ghoul. I wasn't sure if it's all part of the same package.
That would have been awesome. Laceration's great.
Yeah, that album's really good. So, the last time we spoke, you had already begun work on this album. And as you mentioned a little while ago, you're already writing songs for the next album. Do you want to tease what the next album might sound like?
So the next one is going to take influence from King Kong. We've we've shown a lot of appreciation for Godzilla and now Gamera, so I think it's time to show some love for the big monkey, you know? So I think our next record's going to be a lot more straightforward, you know, very primal sounding. You know, I mean, King Kong, he's a big, giant dinosaur killing ape, so I just want our next record to sound really tough and nonstop and straightforward.
You know, you're such a big movie buff. I'm curious if you ever, or if you do, work in special effects, or if you have any plans to work in movies in some capacity, either making music or being part of the filmmaking.
I'll admit my first dream I ever had was I wanted to be a film director someday, but as I got older and I did more research on it, I just started to realize that the whole thing sounded extremely stressful. So
I
yeah.
direct videos for social media sometimes, and it is extremely stressful.
Hmm.
But honestly, like if you've been, leading a band for a number of years, and if you've gone on tour, or any of the things that go along with being in a band, I think you can handle it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's necessarily the skills required that make directing difficult. I think it's the personalities involved, like having to juggle,
Mhm.
multiple responsibilities, and sometimes temperamental personalities. But it's maybe not as hard as you think. You ever wanted to do like a kaiju style video for Oxygen Destroyer?
I'll admit someday if I had the time or money for it, I wouldn't mind making my own like kaiju short film, maybe like a 15 or 20-minute kaiju movie. I do know a lot of people in kaiju fandom that do special effects and stuff like that. So like sometimes I think about it and I'm like, if I was to make a film, these are the people I'd work with, stuff like that. Maybe someday, maybe someday.
Especially now that you're in Portland, you've got such a wide variety of creative people living in your city. There's a band called Child Bite. They're more on the noise rock side, but they do their own DIY music videos that are based on like old monster movies, like giant ants and things like that.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I don't know. It may be closer to being possible than you think it is.
I guess I do have a little bit of a little bit of experience with film editing, I guess, or at least video editing. Because have you seen the music videos for this new album we put out?
I haven't, not yet.
Yeah, so the thing with this new record is it goes in the order of the three films it's based on. Like all the songs and riffs are like syncing up to key scenes from the films. And three music videos we have out were videos that I made myself, where it's the songs are like syncing up to the fight scenes from the movies. And whenever we play venues that have screen projectors, I have a montage film I made myself that of like all the movies that we're singing about, and it like syncs up to our riffs and our aspects and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's the first step. You know, if you know how to edit, then you know how to cut together footage to tell a story. I think the next step is either to get a camera or to find somebody who's got experience as a professional camera operator, and just shoot some performance stuff and edit it together with some public domain kaiju films. I'm not telling you have to. I'm just if this is something you're interested in doing, it's
Yeah,
it's well
yeah,
within your grasp.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. It's something I could see myself trying someday. For now, I'm just focused on Oxygen Destroyer.
Right,
But
right. I understand. So, Guardian of the Universe is out now through Redefining Darkness Records. Lord Kaiju, please tell everyone how they can order the album. What's the best way to get it?
I'd say go to Redefining Darkness, go to the Bandcamp page. If you go to the Redefining Darkness Bandcamp upload of our new album, you can order vinyls and CDs, and they also have shirts and hoodies on there for sale. And if any of it ever sells out, you can go to the Redefining Darkness web store and find more for sale there.
So, I believe the original pressing of the vinyl is sold out, but has there been a repress?
Yeah, there's been a recent repress with 2 colors, black and red, and those are for sale right now.
And all your merch goes through the Bandcamp page?
Yeah, yeah. All of our merch you can buy from the record label.
And if people want to follow Oxygen Destroyer online and find out more about tour dates and things like that, what's the best way to do that?
We have Facebook and Instagram, Spotify. I'd say Facebook and Instagram are pretty much our main websites.
And where can people find the videos that you mentioned?
They're on YouTube right now, and they're uploaded on the Redefining Darkness YouTube channel.
Cool. Is there anything else you want to say?
I'd like to thank you for having me back. It's good to be back. And to all of our listeners and followers, we really appreciate your support. We have big things in the work, as they all say,
Big as a skyscraper, right?
Yeah.
Very cool. Just want to add one last thing. It was very cool to see you guys at Terrorfest this year, and hopefully I'll see you guys again next year.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry we couldn't talk more too. I couldn't find you after we got done loading our stuff.
Yeah. No, I bailed just because I was taking a bus back to West Seattle.
Oh man.
And the bus was hourly. Do you know what I mean? So if I missed the 12:22, I'd have to wait for the 1:22.
Yeah.
So I was basically sprinting home every night.
God damn.
But it was very cool to run into you, and yeah, hopefully I'll get to see you guys again next year.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll definitely be back.
Take care, man.
You too. Everything is able to defend. So many lies.